In the harsh winter of 1952, on a snowy Christmas Eve in the remote mountains of New Mexico, a reclusive Apache man named Samuel Blackfeather, haunted by the loss of his own family, discovers two abandoned twin girls, no more than 4 years old, freezing in the snow near his cabin. What begins as an act of mercy transforms into a journey that will unearth devastating truths about the girl's identity, forcing Samuel to confront his deepest wounds and ultimately revealing a connection that will shatter everything he believed about fate, forgiveness, and the meaning of family. The wind howled like a wounded animal through the pine trees, carrying with it the kind of cold that seeped through bones and settled in the soul. Samuel Blackfeather stood at the window of his cabin, watching the snow fall in thick, heavy sheets across the mountain landscape. His weathered hands wrapped around a cup of bitter coffee that had long since gone cold, but he didn't notice. He rarely noticed such things anymore. It was Christmas Eve, though you wouldn't know it from looking at his cabin. No decorations adorned the rough wooden walls, no tree stood in the corner, no stockings hung by the stone fireplace. Samuel had stopped celebrating anything years ago, 5 years to be exact. 5 years since the accident that had taken everything from him. At 52, Samuel cut an imposing figure, despite his self-imposed isolation. His long black hair, streaked with premature silver, was tied back in a traditional style his grandmother had taught him. Deep lines etched his bronze face, each one a testament to loss and survival. His dark eyes, once warm and full of life, now held the permanent distance of a man who had learned to live with ghosts. The cabin itself was modest, a single room with a loft, built by his own hands from the surrounding pines. It sat 3 miles from the nearest road, 15 miles from the closest town of Cedar Ridge, just the way Samuel wanted it. The world had taken enough from him. He had no desire to give it any more opportunities. He was about to turn away from the window when something caught his eyes. A flash of color against the white, something that didn't belong in the monochrome landscape of winter. Red, bright red, like blood on snow. Samuel frowned, setting down his cup. It was probably nothing. A piece of trash, blown up from the valley, or maybe a wounded animal. But something, call it instinct, call it the old Apache wisdom his grandfather had tried to instill in him, made him reach for his heavy coat. "Damn fool," he muttered to himself, his voice rough from disuse. He could go days without speaking to another soul, weeks even. The only company he kept was with the ravens that perched on his roof and the occasional deer that wandered too close to his cabin. He pulled on his boots, grabbed his rifle out of habit more than necessity, and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath and making his eyes water. The wind had picked up considerably in the last hour, turning the falling snow into a swirling white chaos that limited visibility to maybe 20 feet. The red he'd seen was off to the left, near the old fallen oak that marked the edge of his property. Samuel trudged through the knee-deep snow, his breath forming clouds that were instantly torn away by the wind. As he got closer, the splash of red resolved into something that made his heart skip a beat. A coat, a small, red winter coat, and it was moving. Samuel quickened his pace, his mind racing. No one should be out here, especially not in this weather. The nearest hiking trail was 2 miles east, and even the most foolish tourist wouldn't venture this far off the path in a blizzard. As he reached the fallen oak, what he saw stopped him cold. 2 small forms huddled against the massive trunk, barely visible beneath a thin covering of snow. Children. 2 little girls, identical in every way Samuel could see, dressed in matching red coats that were far too thin for this weather. They couldn't have been more than 4 years old. One of them, the one on the left, had her arms wrapped around her sister, trying to shield her from the worst of the wind. Her eyes were closed, her small face pale as porcelain, lips tinged blue. The other girl was conscious but barely, her dark eyes unfocused and glazed with the dangerous drowsiness that preceded hypothermia. "Jesus Christ," Samuel breathed, dropping his rifle and falling to his knees beside them. The conscious girl looked at him without really seeing him, her mouth moving as if trying to speak, but no sound came out. Without hesitation, Samuel scooped both girls into his arms. They weighed almost nothing, like birds' bones wrapped in wet fabric. The unconscious one didn't stir. The other made a weak sound of protest before going limp against his chest. Samuel ran. For the first time in 5 years, he ran like his life depended on it, except it wasn't his life that mattered now. His boots slipped on hidden ice beneath the snow. His breathing became labored in the thin mountain air. But he didn't slow down. The cabin had never seemed so far away. He kicked the door open with such force, it slammed against the wall, sending his coffee cup crashing to the floor. Samuel didn't care. He laid both girls on the rug in front of the fireplace, his hands already working to remove their soaked coats. "Stay with me," he found himself saying, though he wasn't sure either girl could hear him. "Just stay with me." The fire had burned low while he was out. Samuel threw 2 more logs on it, not caring about conservation. He grabbed every blanket he owned, all 3 of them, and began the delicate process of warming the girls without shocking their systems. The unconscious one, he needed to stop thinking of them as the unconscious one, and the other one wore a small necklace with a pendant that read Emma in cursive script. Her sister's matching necklace read Lily. Emma and Lily. The names somehow made them more real, more immediate. Samuel's hands moved with a competence he didn't know he still possessed. Once in another life, he'd been an EMT on the reservation, before he'd moved to the city, before he'd met Maria, before everything had gone to hell. He pushed the memories aside and focused on the task at hand. Check for frostbite, gradual warming, watch for signs of severe hypothermia. The girls' clothes were soaked through, but underneath they wore what looked like nightgowns, pink flannel with little dancing bears on them. Who had let them outside dressed like this? Where were their parents? Lily stirred first, her eyelids fluttering. When she opened her eyes fully, they were the deepest brown Samuel had ever seen, like polished mahogany. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and confusion, her small hand reaching out instinctively for her sister. Emma. Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse and frightened. "She's right here," Samuel said, trying to make his unused voice as gentle as possible. "You're both safe now. You're in my cabin getting warm." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. Instead, she curled closer to her sister, whispering something Samuel couldn't make out. He saw her lips form what looked like "I'm sorry" over and over again. It took another hour before Emma showed signs of waking, the longest hour of Samuel's life since that night, 5 years ago. When she finally opened her eyes, the same deep brown as her sister's, she looked directly at Samuel with an intensity that seemed impossible for a child her age. "Are you the angel?" she asked, her voice clear despite everything she'd been through. Samuel almost laughed, a bitter sound that died in his throat. "No, little one, I'm nobody's angel." Emma studied him for a long moment, then shook her head with the decisive certainty only a 4-year-old could muster. "Mama said an angel would find us. She said to wait by the big tree, and an angel would come. Where is your mama?" Samuel asked gently, though something cold was settling in his stomach. The twins exchanged a look that was far too mature for their years. A look that spoke of secrets and sadness and things children shouldn't have to know. "She had to go away," Lily finally said. "She said she had to go to heaven to be with the other angels, but she promised someone would find us." Samuel felt his chest tighten. He looked at these 2 little girls, abandoned in a blizzard on Christmas Eve, and wondered what kind of desperate situation would drive a mother to such an act. Suicide, terminal illness, or something worse. "How long were you waiting by the tree?" he asked. Emma scrunched up her face, thinking. "Since the sun was up, Mama left when it was still dark." She was crying. Since dawn. These girls had been out in the cold since dawn, waiting for help that almost didn't come. If Samuel hadn't seen that flash of red, If he hadn't investigated, "Are you hungry?" he asked, changing the subject. Both girls nodded eagerly, and Samuel realized he had a new problem. His cabin was stocked for one person who didn't eat much. He had beans, some canned soup, coffee, and half a loaf of bread that had seen better days. He heated up a can of chicken noodle soup, divided it between two bowls, and watched as the girls ate with the focused intensity of the truly hungry. They were perfectly synchronized, lifting their spoons at the same time, wiping their mouths with the backs of their hands in identical gestures. "How old are you?" Samuel asked. "4," they said in unison, then giggled, the first sound of joy he'd heard in his cabin in 5 years. "When's your birthday?" "July 15th, Emma said proudly. "We're going to be 5 next time." July 5th. Samuel's hand stilled on the coffee pot he was refilling. His daughter would have been 9 this past July 15th. If she had lived, the coincidence sent a chill down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold. As the girls finished their soup, Samuel tried to piece together what he should do. The rational thing would be to wait for the storm to pass, then take them to town to the authorities. They'd find relatives, or failing that, foster care. It was the right thing to do. But looking at them now, huddled together under his blankets, their eyes already growing heavy with exhaustion and warmth, something in Samuel's chest cracked, just a little. A tiny fissure in the wall he'd built around his heart. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow, when the storm passes, we'll figure out what to do." Emma reached out and grabbed his hand. Her fingers were so small they barely wrapped around 2 of his. "Will you stay with us? We don't like being alone." Samuel looked down at that tiny hand, holding his, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. Another small hand, another voice asking him to stay. But he hadn't been there. He'd been at work, pulling a double shift for Christmas money they didn't really need. He'd been absent when it mattered most. "I'll be right here," he heard himself say. "I won't leave." The girls curled up together on the rug, looking like mirror images of each other. Within minutes, their breathing had evened out into sleep. Samuel sat in his chair, watching them, standing guard against dangers they couldn't name. And he couldn't forget. Outside, the storm raged on, cutting them off from the world. But inside the cabin, for the first time in 5 years, Samuel felt something other than emptiness. He didn't have a name for it yet, didn't trust it enough to name it. But it was there, fragile as the sleeping children in front of his fire. He thought about their mother, whoever she was, making the impossible choice to leave her daughters in the cold, trusting that someone would find them. What kind of desperation drove a person to that? What kind of faith? The fire crackled, sending shadows dancing across the walls. In the flickering light, Samuel could see tear tracks on both girls' faces, dried now but evidence of the terror they must have felt, waiting in the cold, waiting for an angel who turned out to be nothing more than a broken man hiding from the world. But they were alive. That had to count for something. Samuel reached for the phone to call the authorities, then remembered the lines were down, had been for 2 days now. The storm had knocked them out, and with the roads impassable, no repair crew would make it up here until after Christmas at the earliest. He was stuck with them, and they with him, for at least another day or 2. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, watching the peaceful rise and fall of their breathing, Samuel felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years. Purpose. Even if it was temporary, even if it would end as soon as the storm cleared, for now, these girls needed him. Maybe, though he wouldn't admit it, not yet, he needed them too. As the night deepened and the storm continued its assault on the mountain, Samuel kept his vigil. He thought about Christmas Eve's past, about a little girl who used to leave cookies for Santa, even though Samuel had tried to explain that the Apache had their own traditions. Maria had laughed and said, "Let her have both worlds, Sam. Let her have all the magic she can hold." Now, looking at Emma and Lily, he wondered if Maria would approve of what he was about to do. Tomorrow, he would have to make decisions. Tomorrow, he would have to face the world again. But tonight, on this strange, sorrowful, miraculous Christmas Eve, he would keep watch over two lost girls who'd mistaken him for an angel. And maybe, in the keeping, find a piece of himself he thought the mountain had buried forever. Samuel woke with a start, his hand instinctively reaching for a rifle that wasn't there. For a moment he was disoriented. Something was different. The cabin was warmer than usual, and there was a sound he couldn't immediately place, soft breathing that wasn't his own. The twins, they were still asleep on the rug, but sometime during the night they had migrated closer to his chair. Emma's small hand was stretched out toward him, as if even in sleep she needed to know someone was there. Lily had her arm protectively draped over her sister, their dark hair tangled together so you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Pale morning light filtered through the frosted windows. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world transformed into crystalline silence. Samuel stood carefully, his joints protesting after a night in the chair, and made his way to the window. The snow had to be at least 4 feet deep in some places, with drifts against the cabin that reached nearly to the roof. The access road would be completely impassable. Even his truck, parked under the lean-to, was buried up to its windows. They weren't going anywhere for days. A small voice behind him said, "Is it Christmas?" Samuel turned to find Emma sitting up, rubbing her eyes with her fists. Her sister stirred beside her, but didn't wake. "Yes," Samuel said quietly. "It's Christmas morning." Emma's face fell. Santa didn't come. The words hit Samuel unexpectedly hard. Of course Santa hadn't come. Santa hadn't come to this cabin in 5 years. But looking at this little girl's disappointed face, he found himself saying, "Maybe he couldn't find you in the storm. Maybe he'll come later." It was a foolish thing to say. He had nothing to give them, no presents hidden away. But Emma's face brightened slightly, and she nodded with the resilient faith of childhood. "Mama said Santa always finds good children," she said. Then, more quietly, "We tried to be good." "I'm sure you were very good," Samuel said, his throat tight. Lily woke then, sitting up abruptly with a gasp. "Emma!" She grabbed her sister's hand, panic in her eyes, until she registered her surroundings. When she saw Samuel, she relaxed fractionally but remained watchful, more cautious than her sister. "I need to ask you girls some questions," Samuel said, pulling over a wooden stool to sit at their level. "About your mama, about where you live. Can you tell me your last name?" The twins exchanged another of those too mature looks. "Mama said we shouldn't tell strangers," Lily said carefully. "But he's not a stranger," Emma protested. "He's the angel. He saved us." "I'm not," Samuel began, then stopped. If thinking he was some kind of divine intervention helped them cope, who was he to take that away? Even angels need to know how to help you find your family. "Do you have anyone else? A daddy? Grandparents? Aunts or uncles?" Both girls shook their heads. "It was just us and Mama," Emma said. "Always just us three." "What about your house? Do you remember where you live?" Lily bit her lip. The blue house, with the broken swing in the yard, that could describe 100 houses in the valley. Samuel tried a different approach. "Do you know the name of your town?" "Cedar Ridge," both girls said simultaneously. At least that was something. Cedar Ridge was the closest town, though it was still 15 miles away. But it was small, maybe 3,000 people. Someone would know about twin girls and their mother. "What's your mama's name?" Samuel asked. "Mama," Emma said, as if this should be obvious. "But what do other grown-ups call her?" Lily scrunched up her face, thinking hard. "Sometimes they call her Miss Rachel. The mean lady at the store calls her that woman." Rachel. It was something to go on at least. A woman named Rachel in Cedar Ridge with 4-year-old twin daughters. When the roads cleared, it shouldn't be too hard to track down information. "Are you girls hungry?" Samuel asked, changing the subject. Their eager nods reminded him of his supply problem. He managed to scrape together some oatmeal, adding the last of his brown sugar to make it more palatable. The girls ate without complaint, though he caught them glancing around the spare cabin with curious eyes. "You don't have a Christmas tree," Lily observed. "No," Samuel admitted. "Why not? How did you explain to a 4-year-old that Christmas trees belonged to a life that had ended? That decorating felt like a betrayal of the family he'd lost." "I forgot," he finally said. Emma jumped up, wobbling slightly as her legs remembered how to work. "We could make one. Mama showed us how to make decorations from paper," and she looked around the cabin, her enthusiasm dimming as she realized how little there was to work with. "It's okay," Lily said, putting her hand on her sister's shoulder. "We don't need a tree." But Samuel could see the disappointment in both their eyes. Christmas was supposed to be magical for children, especially children who'd been abandoned in a snowstorm. "Wait," he said, surprising himself. He climbed up to the loft and pulled down a dusty box he hadn't opened in 5 years. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside were art supplies, colored pencils, paper, scissors, glue, things he'd bought for another little girl who'd never gotten to use them all. He'd meant to throw them away a dozen times, but could never bring himself to do it. "We can't make a tree," he said, bringing the box down. "But maybe we can make some decorations." The transformation in the girls was immediate and absolute. They fell upon the supplies like they were treasures, exclaiming over each colored pencil, reverently touching the sheets of clean paper. Samuel watched them work, their heads bent together, whispering and giggling as they cut out lopsided snowflakes and drew pictures of reindeer that looked more like dogs with sticks on their heads. They were so absorbed that they didn't notice Samuel slip outside. He returned with a small pine branch he'd cut from one of the trees near the cabin. It wasn't much, maybe 3 feet tall, but when he set it in a bucket filled with rocks to hold it steady, Emma clapped her hands in delight. "A tree!" she exclaimed. They spent the next hour decorating their makeshift Christmas tree with paper ornaments. Samuel found himself drawn into their enthusiasm, even cutting out a star for the top. When Lily struggled with the scissors, her small hands not quite strong enough, he helped her, guiding her fingers gently. "You have big hands," Emma observed, comparing her tiny palm to his. "Apache hands," Samuel said without thinking. "What's Apache?" Lily asked. "It's who I am, my people. Like how you're—" He trailed off, realizing he didn't know their ethnicity. Looking at them more closely in the morning light, he could see their features more clearly. Dark hair, brown eyes, but their skin was lighter than his, with a hint of something Latino maybe, or Mediterranean. "Mama said we're a little bit of everything," Emma said proudly. "She said we're like soup, lots of different things mixed together to make something good." Samuel felt his lips twitch, almost a smile. That's a good way to put it. As the day wore on, the girls became more comfortable, their natural personalities emerging. Emma was the bold one, the leader, always ready with a question or an observation. Lily was quieter, more cautious, but Samuel noticed she was the one who watched everything, who remembered details her sister missed. Around midday, while the girls were drawing pictures, Samuel tried the phone again. Still dead. The radio gave nothing but static. They were completely cut off. He was standing at the window, calculating how long his food supplies would last, with 3 mouths to feed, when he heard Lily say quietly, "She's not coming back, is she?" Samuel turned to find both girls looking at him with those 2 knowing eyes. "Your mama?" Lily nodded. "She was sick. She tried to hide it, but we knew. She would cry when she thought we were asleep, and she got thinner and thinner, like she was disappearing. She gave us her food," Emma added matter-of-factly. "She said she wasn't hungry, but we knew she was lying. Grown-ups think kids don't notice things, but we do." Samuel's chest tightened. A sick mother, probably no money for treatment, no family to help. The picture was becoming clearer and more heartbreaking. "Did she take you to the doctor? Did anyone know she was sick?" "She said doctors cost too much money," Lily said. "She said we needed the money for food and the house. But then the mean man came and said we had to leave the house anyway. Eviction, illness, desperation, the perfect storm that led to a mother leaving her children in the snow, trusting to fate or God or the kindness of strangers. She loved us, Emma said firmly, as if Samuel had suggested otherwise. She loved us more than anything. She said so all the time. I'm sure she did, Samuel said gently. Sometimes people who love us have to make impossible choices, like choosing to work a double shift instead of being home on the night your family needed you most, like choosing money over moments, not knowing how few moments were left. Mr. Angel, Emma said, and Samuel realized she was addressing him. Are you sad? He hadn't realized his thoughts were showing on his face. I was thinking about someone. Someone you love? Lily asked. Someone I loved, yes. Where are they? They went to heaven, like your mama. Emma stood up and walked over to him, wrapping her small arms around his leg. I'm sorry you're sad. The simple compassion of it nearly undid him. Samuel stood frozen, feeling the warmth of this tiny child, offering comfort to a stranger, and something inside him shifted, a tectonic plate of grief, moving just enough to let something else through. He bent down and carefully returned the hug, his first embrace of another human being in 5 years. When he straightened up, Lily was there too, looking up at him with those serious brown eyes. We could be your family for Christmas, she offered. Just for today, so you're not alone. Samuel had to turn away, ostensibly to check the fire, but really to compose himself. These children, who had lost everything, were offering to share what little they had, their company, their warmth, their resilient joy with him. That's very kind of you, he managed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of small moments that felt monumentally important. Teaching the girls to play checkers with an old set he'd forgotten he owned, sharing the last can of peaches for lunch, watching them savor each bite like it was ambrosia. Emma falling asleep against his shoulder while he told them a story his grandfather had told him about Coyote and the stars. As evening fell, Samuel faced the reality of another night. The girls couldn't keep sleeping on the floor. He gave them his bed in the loft, tucking them in with every blanket he owned while he planned to take the chair again. Will you stay close? Lily asked, fear creeping back into her voice as darkness settled over the cabin. I'll be right downstairs. That's too far, Emma said. What if we have bad dreams? Samuel looked at their frightened faces and made a decision. He pulled the mattress off the bed frame and dragged it down to the main floor, setting it near the fire. We'll all sleep down here, like camping. The relief on their faces was palpable. As they settled onto the mattress, one on each side of him, Samuel felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. These children were trusting him completely, with the unconscious faith that only the very young or very desperate can manage. Mr. Angel, Lily whispered in the darkness. You can call me Sam, he said. Sam, she repeated, trying it out. Do you think Mama found the other angels? Samuel stared at the ceiling, searching for the right words. I think when people love us that much, they never really leave us. They just change into something else. Like snow becomes water, then becomes rain, then becomes snow again. So she's still here? Emma asked, hopefully. Just different, in a way. In the way you remember her. In the way you love each other. That never goes away. The girls seemed satisfied with this answer, and soon their breathing evened out into sleep. But Samuel lay awake, acutely aware of their small bodies pressed against his sides, seeking warmth and safety and something he wasn't sure he knew how to give anymore. Tomorrow, he would have to start making real decisions. The authorities would need to be contacted. The girls would need to be placed somewhere. Their mother would need to be found if she was still alive. All of that loomed ahead like the mountain storm that had just passed. But tonight, in the dying light of the fire, Samuel allowed himself to pretend that broken things could be mended, that abandoned children could find homes, that a man who had lost everything could somehow, impossibly, Find something worth saving again. Outside, the wind had completely died, leaving a silence so complete it felt like the world was holding its breath. And perhaps it was. Perhaps the universe sometimes pauses at moments like this, when fate and chance and choice converge in a single cabin on a mountainside, where two lost girls and one lost man huddle together against the cold and the dark and the terrible uncertainty of tomorrow. Samuel felt Emma shift in her sleep, her small hand finding his and holding on tight. On his other side, Lily murmured something unintelligible and pressed closer. For the first time in 5 years, Samuel Blackfeather didn't feel alone on Christmas. The morning came with troubling signs. Samuel woke to find Emma burning with fever, her small face flushed, and her breathing labored. The exposure from 2 days ago was catching up with her. Lily sat beside her sister, holding her hand and singing softly, a lullaby that Samuel didn't recognize, something about mockingbirds and diamond rings. "How long has she been like this?" Samuel asked, pressing his hand to Emma's forehead. "She was burning up since the sun came up," Lily said, her voice small and frightened. "I tried to wake her, but she wouldn't open her eyes all the way." Samuel's EMT training kicked in, overriding 5 years of rust. Fever after exposure could mean pneumonia, infection, or a dozen other complications. He had basic medical supplies, but nothing for a serious fever in a child. No children's medication, no antibiotics. "Emma, sweetheart, can you hear me?" He gently shook her shoulder. Emma's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. "Mama?" she whispered. "Mama, it's cold." "She thinks you're our mama sometimes when she's sick," Lily explained, as if this was normal. "She gets confused." Samuel's mind raced. The phone was still dead. He'd checked first thing. The roads were still impassable. Even if he could somehow dig out the truck, driving in these conditions with a sick child would be dangerous, possibly fatal if they got stuck. He carried Emma to the bed and began the process of trying to bring down her fever with cool cloths and what little aspirin he had crushed into water. She fought him weakly, whimpering for her mother, and Lily climbed up beside her, stroking her hair and continuing that soft singing. "What song is that?" Samuel asked, trying to keep Lily calm while he worked. "Mama's special song. She made it up just for us. She said as long as we could hear the song, we'd know we were loved." The melody was haunting, beautiful in its simplicity. Samuel found himself humming along as he worked, and Lily gave him a surprised but pleased look. By noon, Emma's fever had risen despite his effort. She was delirious now, talking to people who weren't there, reaching for invisible hands. At one point, she looked directly at Samuel and said, "Clear as day, Sarah says it's not your fault." Samuel froze. Sarah, his daughter's name, a name he hadn't spoken aloud in 5 years. "What did you say?" But Emma had already drifted back into her fever dreams, muttering about angels and snow and someone named Mrs. Henderson, who apparently had a mean dog. "She does this when she's sick," Lily said, noticing his reaction. "Says things about people." "Mama said Emma has the gift. She sees things others don't. But I just think her brain gets fuzzy when she's hot." Samuel forced himself to focus. Coincidence? It had to be. Sarah was a common name. The child was delirious. It meant nothing, but his hands shook slightly as he refreshed the cool cloth on Emma's forehead. The day wore on with agonizing slowness. Samuel found himself telling stories to keep Lily distracted. Apache legends his grandfather had shared, about the hero twins who fought monsters, about white-painted woman who brought healing to the people. Lily listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that showed she understood more than most adults would. "Are you a hero?" she asked, during a break in the stories. "No," Samuel said immediately. "Heroes save people. You saved us." That was different. Lily studied him with those two wise eyes. "Mama said heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they just wear sadness, and try to help anyway." Before Samuel could respond to that remarkably profound statement, Emma stirred and opened her eyes clearer this time. "Sam?" she said weakly. Relief flooded through him. She recognized him, remembered his name. "I'm here, little one. I had a dream," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There was a girl. She looked like you, but smaller. She said to tell you she's okay. She's with her mommy and the baby." The world tilted. Samuel gripped the edge of the bed to steady himself. What did you say?" "The girl in my dream. Sarah? She said she's okay. She said the water didn't hurt for long." Samuel couldn't breathe. The water, the river, the accident that had taken his wife Maria, his daughter Sarah, and their unborn child. Maria had been 7 months pregnant. They'd been crossing the bridge during a flash flood. He should have been with them, should have been driving. But he'd been at work. Nobody knew about the baby except family. They'd been waiting to announce it widely, wanting to be sure everything was okay. The baby who would have been born in July. July 15th was Maria's due date. July 15th. The twins' birthday. How? He started, but couldn't finish. Emma had already closed her eyes again, drifting back into feverish sleep. Lily looked between her sister and Samuel, clearly confused by his reaction. "Did she say something bad?" Lily asked anxiously. "Sometimes she says things that make people upset. She doesn't mean to." Samuel forced himself to take a breath, then another. "No, sweetheart. She didn't say anything bad. Your sister, does she do this often? Say things about people she couldn't know?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Mama said it runs in families sometimes. Her grandma had it too, could see things, know things. Mama said it skipped her but came to Emma, double strong. That's why some people didn't like us. They said Emma was creepy." "She's not creepy," Samuel said firmly, surprising himself with his vehemence. "She's special. That's what Mama always said too." As the afternoon wore on, Emma's fever finally began to break. She slept more peacefully, her breathing easier. Samuel found himself studying both girls' faces, looking for, what? Some sign? Some explanation for what Emma had said. It was Lily who broke his reverie. "Sam, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you going to send us away when the snow melts?" The question he'd been dreading. It's complicated, Lily. There are rules, laws. I have to tell people we found you. They'll want to find your family. We don't have any family, just Mama. And she's gone. You don't know that for certain." Lily gave him a look that was far too adult. "She was coughing blood the night before she left us. She tried to hide it, but I saw. She could barely walk to the tree. She kissed us goodbye and said wait for the angel. She knew she wasn't coming back." Samuel's throat tightened. "I'm sorry, Lily. I'm so sorry. Will they separate us? Emma and me?" "No," Samuel said immediately. "No, I won't let that happen." He hadn't meant to say it, hadn't meant to make promises he might not be able to keep, but the fear in Lily's eyes was too much to bear. "You promise?" "I promise." Lily nodded, seeming to accept this at face value. Then, with the lightning-quick subject changes of childhood, she asked, "Can you teach me more Apache words? I want to learn." So Samuel taught her simple words: si for sun, goa for water, idzdan for woman, goya for child. She repeated them carefully, her pronunciation surprisingly good for a 4-year-old. When Emma woke an hour later, much improved, Lily immediately began teaching her sister what she'd learned. "We're learning Sam's language," Emma announced proudly, though her voice was still weak. "We're going to be Apache too." "It doesn't work quite like that," Samuel said, but he was smiling, actually smiling for the first time in recent memory. That evening, as they shared a meager dinner of beans and the last of the bread, Emma suddenly said, "Someone's coming." Samuel frowned. "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow. Someone's coming. A lady with red hair and sad eyes. She's looking for something." "Emma sees things before they happen sometimes," Lily explained casually, as if this was perfectly normal. She knew about the mean dog, before it bit the mailman. She knew Miss Rodriguez was going to have her baby early. Samuel didn't know what to make of this. The rational part of him, the part that had been an EMT dealing in facts and science, wanted to dismiss it as coincidence and childhood imagination. But the part of him that had grown up listening to his grandfather's stories, the part that knew there were things in this world that couldn't be explained, that part whispered, "Listen." That night, the girls insisted on sleeping close to him again. As they settled in, Emma whispered, "The girl in my dream, Sarah, she wants you to know something else." Samuel's heart nearly stopped. "What?" "She says to look in the blue box. In Mama's things. She says it's important." "Emma, your Mama's things aren't here." But Emma was already asleep, curled against his side like a trusting puppy. On his other side, Lily reached over and patted his hand. "It'll be okay," she said, with the confidence of a child who still believed in happy endings. "You'll see, everything happens for a reason. That's what Mama always said." Samuel lay awake long into the night, his mind churning. The fever could explain Emma's words. Children said strange things when they were sick. But the details, the water, the baby, the date, how could she know? And tomorrow someone coming, it was impossible. The roads were still blocked. No one could get through. But as he finally drifted off to sleep, Samuel found himself hoping Emma was right. Not about the visitor, that seemed impossible, but about Sarah, about forgiveness, about everything happening for a reason. Because if that was true, then maybe these two lost girls hadn't found him by accident. Maybe that flash of red in the snow had been more than coincidence. Maybe, just maybe, in saving them, he might find a way to save himself. The wind picked up again during the night, not a storm but a steady blow that would help clear some of the roads. Samuel heard it singing through the pines and thought it sounded like a lullaby, or maybe that was just Lily, humming her mother's song in her sleep. Either way, it sounded like hope. When morning came, it would bring whatever Emma had foreseen, visitor or not. But for now, in the darkness with two small girls trusting him to keep them safe, Samuel allowed himself to believe in possibilities he'd thought were buried with his family. The blue box. He wondered what secrets it held, what connection it might reveal, but that was tomorrow's mystery. Tonight, he had two children to protect, and for the first time in 5 years, that felt like enough. More than enough. It felt like purpose. Samuel woke to the sound of an engine struggling through snow. He sat up abruptly, careful not to wake the girls, and moved to the window. The morning sun reflected blindingly off the white landscape, but he could make out a figure on a snowmobile, weaving between the trees where the road should be. Emma had been right. The rider was indeed a woman, and as she pulled off her helmet, Samuel saw the red hair auburn, really, catching the morning light like copper. She looked around, spotted his cabin, and began wading through the snow toward his door. Samuel opened it before she could knock. "Mr. Blackfeather?" she asked, slightly out of breath. "Samuel Blackfeather?" "Yes. My name is Helen Morrison. I'm a social worker with the county. We received a CB radio transmission yesterday that you had two children at your cabin." Samuel frowned. "I didn't send any transmission. My radio's been dead." Helen looked confused. "Strange. Someone definitely called it in. Said two girls were safe at the Blackfeather cabin after the storm. We've been looking for them for 3 days." 3 days. Samuel stepped aside to let her in. "They've only been here since Christmas Eve, 2 days ago." "No, they went missing on the 22nd. Their mother," Helen paused, her sad eyes, exactly as Emma had described, scanning the cabin. "Is that them?" The girls were stirring, awakened by the voices. Emma sat up first, took one look at Helen and said, "You found it, didn't you?" "The blue box?" Helen's face went pale. "How did you?" "Yes, we found your mother's things." "How did you know?" Emma just smiled her mysterious little smile and snuggled closer to Samuel, who had moved protectively toward the girls. "Miss Blackfeather," Helen said carefully, "I need to tell you about their mother, Rachel Martinez. We found her body yesterday morning, about a mile from where you discovered the girls. She had terminal cancer, lung cancer, stage 4. The coroner, said she probably died within hours of leaving the children. Lily had been listening, and tears began rolling silently down her cheeks. Emma took her sister's hand, and they held on to each other tightly. She left a note, Helen continued, pulling out an envelope along with a box of documents. The note was addressed to whoever finds my angels. Samuel took the envelope with hands that weren't quite steady. The handwriting was shaky but determined. To whoever finds my angels, my name is Rachel Martinez, and the two girls you've found are my entire world. Emma and Lily are 4 years old, born July 15, 2048. They are good girls, smart and kind and special in ways you'll discover. I am dying. The doctors gave me 3 months, but that was 6 months ago. I've held on as long as I could, but I can't watch them watch me die. I can't let them see me waste away to nothing. I know leaving them seems cruel, but staying would be crueler. I've prayed every night for the right person to find them, someone who would understand that they're not ordinary children. Emma especially has gifts that some people fear. She knows things, sees things. Please don't let anyone make her feel wrong for it. I have no family to take them. Their father died before they were born, a car accident. I've never told them about because how do you explain to children that they survived when their father didn't? I was 7 months pregnant, and the crash sent me into early labor. They were born fighters, my girls. Born survivors. In the blue box are all their documents, birth certificates, medical records, and something else, something I've never told anyone. The man who hit our car, who killed their father, he had a wife and daughter who died in a flood the same year. His name was in the accident report, Samuel Blackfeather. I looked him up once, wanting to hate him, wanting someone to blame, but I learned about his loss, and realized we were both victims of fate's cruel timing. I never contacted him. What would I say? But I've followed his story from afar. I know he left the city, lives alone in the mountains now, and perhaps it's madness, perhaps it's the cancer affecting my mind, but when I knew I had to leave my girls, something told me to go to the mountain, to leave them where they might be found by a man who would understand loss, who might need them as much as they need him. If you are reading this, Samuel Blackfeather, then God or fate, or random chance, has brought things full circle. The children of the man whose car accident widowed me have found their way to you. I don't ask for your forgiveness. There's nothing to forgive. We were all victims that night on highway, but I ask you to consider that maybe, just maybe, these girls are meant to heal the wounds we've both carried. If you're someone else reading this, please know these girls are everything good in the world. They deserve love, stability, and someone who won't separate them. They're all each other has. Tell them I loved them more than all the stars in the sky, and that I'll be watching over them always. Rachel Martinez. Samuel's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, the letter trembling in his hand. The room spun around him as 5 years of guilt and grief came crashing down like an avalanche. Highway 47, a rainy night. He'd been driving home from a double shift, exhausted. The other car had run a red light. That's what the investigation concluded. Not his fault, everyone said, but the other driver had died, a man named David Martinez. Samuel had never known his wife was pregnant, never knew there were survivors. Mr. Blackfeather? Helen's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you all right? The accident, he whispered. Oh God, the accident. Emma crawled into his lap, wrapping her small arms around his neck. It's okay, she whispered. Mama forgave you a long time ago. She said it was just a broken moment, where two stories crashed together. She said sometimes broken things make new patterns. How? Samuel asked, his voice raw. How did she know to bring you here? Mama knew things sometimes, Lily said quietly. Like Emma does. She said it ran in families. She said she dreamed about a cabin in the snow and a sad man who needed angels. Helen cleared her throat. Mr. Blackfeather, there's more. In the box Rachel left all the paperwork needed for adoption. She named you specifically as her choice for guardian, though she also said she understood if you couldn't, given the circumstances. There's a secondary plan for a cousin in Texas if needed. No, Samuel said immediately, his arms tightening around Emma. No, they're not going to Texas. You're saying you want her? Samuel looked at these two girls, the daughters of a man who died in an accident with him, raised by a woman whose forgiveness transcended death itself. He thought about Sarah telling Emma about the blue box, about the water, about forgiveness. He thought about July 15th, the day Maria was supposed to give birth, the day these girls were born in an emergency room after a crash. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I want to adopt them." "Sam's going to be our daddy?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with hope. "If that's okay with you," Samuel said, looking between both girls. They answered by throwing themselves at him, nearly knocking him over with the force of their embrace. For the first time he heard them laugh, really laugh, and it sounded like music, like redemption, like spring after the longest winter. Helen smiled. The sad eyes Emma had described, now warm with unexpected joy. "There's a process, of course. Home visits, paperwork, court hearings. But given Rachel's explicit wishes and the circumstances, I think we can make this work. The fact that you're Native American actually helps. There are provisions for keeping children within cultural communities when possible." "We're going to be Apache," Lily announced proudly. "Sam's teaching us," Helen laughed. "Well then, I'll need to do an initial assessment today, but given that you've kept them safe through a blizzard and Emma's fever," yes, I can see the remnants of fever in her eyes. "Good job managing that without medical supplies. I'd say you're off to a good start." She stayed for 2 hours, taking notes, asking questions, observing how the girls interacted with Samuel. They showed her their paper decorations, taught her the Apache words Samuel had taught them, and Emma drew her a picture of our family, 3 figures holding hands in front of a cabin, with 2 angels watching from the clouds. "That's our mamas," Emma explained matter-of-factly. "Sam's first family and our first mama. They're friends now in heaven." Helen's eyes misted over. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." As she prepared to leave, Helen pulled Samuel aside. "I've been doing this job for 20 years, she said quietly. "I've never seen anything quite like this. The connection, the timing, the way these girls look at you like you hung the moon. Rachel Martinez must have been one hell of a woman to orchestrate this even while dying." "She gave me back my life," Samuel said simply. "I just don't understand how she knew." Helen smiled. "Maybe some things aren't meant to be understood, just accepted. I'll be back in 3 days with the initial paperwork. The road should be clear by then. In the meantime," she handed him a card, "this is my direct number. The phones should be working again by tonight. Call if you need anything." After she left, Samuel sat with the girls, reading through the contents of the blue box. Their birth certificates, listing David Martinez as father. Medical records showing they were healthy, despite their premature birth. Photos of Rachel with the girls at various ages. Her decline visible in the progression, vibrant and healthy in the early photos, gradually becoming thinner, paler, but always smiling when looking at her daughters. At the bottom of the box was a small wrapped package labeled "For Christmas from Mama." "Should we open it?" Lily asked, her voice small. Samuel nodded. Inside were 2 silver lockets, each containing a photo of Rachel on one side and a photo of all 3 of them together on the other. "So you never forget," Emma read from the small card attached. "Love is the only thing that survives everything, even goodbye." Both girls carefully put on their lockets, then curled up against Samuel, one on each side. "Are you still sad?" Lily asked him. Samuel thought about it. The grief was still there, would always be there. But alongside it now was something else. Purpose, hope, the frightening and wonderful weight of being needed again. "I'm sad about some things," he said honestly, "but I'm happy about others. I'm happy you're here. I'm happy we found each other." "Mama was right," Emma said sleepily. "She said the angel would have dark wings because he'd flown through sadness, but he'd carry us somewhere safe." "Is that from a story?" "No," Emma said. "That's just what she said the night before she left. She said, look for the angel with dark wings and sad eyes. But don't be afraid. He's not really broken, just bent, and bent things can still fly." Samuel held them closer, these impossible gifts, these children of interconnected tragedy and hope. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the snow-covered mountains in shades of rose and gold. It looked like the world was beginning again, which, in a way, it was. That night, as the girls slept, Samuel stood outside and looked up at the stars. His grandfather had taught him that the spirits of the departed lived there, watching over the living. He'd stopped believing it when his family died, unable to bear the thought of them watching him fall apart. But now, under the vast New Mexico sky, he spoke to them for the first time in 5 years. "Maria, Sarah, little one we never got to meet. I hope you understand. I hope you sent them to me, or helped Rachel send them. I'll take care of them. I promise. I'll teach them about both their families. I'll make sure they know they were loved from the very beginning, by everyone whose lives they've touched." A shooting star streaked across the sky. Coincidence? Surely. But Samuel smiled anyway. Inside, one of the girls whimpered in her sleep. Samuel went back in, lay down beside them, and sang softly the lullaby Rachel had made up for them, the one about mockingbirds and diamond rings, and love that never dies. The girls settled, peaceful in their dream. Tomorrow would bring paperwork and challenges, and the complex reality of building a family from the ashes of 2 tragedies. But tonight, in a cabin that had been empty for so long, 3 broken people held each other and began the slow, miraculous process of becoming whole. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation and adjustment. The roads gradually cleared, and Samuel made his first trip to Cedar Ridge with the girls to buy supplies and clothes that actually fit them. The town was small enough that their arrival caused a stir. Samuel Blackfeather, the hermit of the mountain, suddenly appearing with 2 little girls in tow. At the general store, Mrs. Chen, the elderly proprietor, peered at them over her glasses. "Samuel, is that really you? And who are these angels?" "Emma and Lily," Samuel said, his hand protective on their shoulders. They're staying with me." Emma, never one to leave things vague, announced, "He's going to be our daddy. Our other daddy went to heaven before we were born, and our mama just went to heaven too, but she sent us to Sam because he needed angels, and we needed a daddy." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened, then softened. "Well then, seems like the universe knows what it's doing." She reached under the counter and pulled out 2 lollipops. "For the angels." The girls thanked her politely, and Samuel felt a rush of pride at their manners, despite everything they'd been through. Their next stop was the clothing store, where Samuel quickly realized he had no idea what little girls needed. Emma and Lily, however, knew exactly what they wanted. Purple everything for Emma and blue like the sky for Lily. The elderly store clerk, Miss Hatfield, watched with amusement as Samuel tried to figure out sizes and appropriate winter wear. "Daughters?" Mr. Hatfield asked gently. Soon Samuel replied, surprising himself with the confidence in his voice. Very soon, as they loaded their purchases into the truck, which Samuel had spent hours digging out, Emma suddenly grabbed his hand. "Someone's watching us." Samuel turned to see a woman across the street, staring at them intently. She was middle-aged, well-dressed, with the kind of pinched expression that suggested permanent disapproval. "Can I help you?" Samuel called out. The woman approached, her eyes fixed on the twins. "Those are Rachel Martinez's girls." "Yes," Samuel said carefully. "I'm Dorothy Henderson. I was her landlord. She owed me 2 months' rent when she died." Her voice was cold, calculating. "I suppose now that debt falls to whoever takes responsibility for her children." "Mrs. Henderson has a mean dog," Lily whispered, hiding partially behind Samuel. "Whatever Rachel owed you died with her," Samuel said firmly. "These children aren't responsible for adult debts." "We'll see what the courts say about that. I know Rachel had family money hidden somewhere. She always managed to buy food for those kids, didn't she? Even when she claimed she couldn't pay rent." Emma stepped forward, her small face serious. "Mr. Whiskers doesn't like you because you're mean to him. That's why he bites. If you were nicer, he'd be nicer too." Dorothy Henderson's face went white. "How do you know about Mr. Whiskers? He's your dog. The little white one you keep in your house, even though the rental agreement says no pets. You're scared the owner will find out, so you never let him outside, and he's sad and angry." The woman backed away, pointing a shaking finger at Emma. "You're just like your grandmother, unnatural, knowing things you shouldn't know. This whole family is cursed. That's enough, Samuel said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. These children have been through enough without your poison. Come near them again and we'll have a problem. He loaded the girls into the truck and drove away, but not before catching Dorothy Henderson pulling out her phone, no doubt to spread gossip about the witch children and the hermit who'd taken them in. Are we cursed? Lily asked quietly from the back seat. No, Samuel said firmly, you're gifted. There's a difference. My grandmother could see things too, know things. It's not a curse, it's just a different way of being connected to the world. Really? Emma perked up. Your grandma was like me. She was. She used to say that some people were born with thin walls between this world and the other worlds. It made them special, but it also meant they had to be careful who they trusted with their gift. Did people think she was scary? Some did, but the wise ones came to her for help. She always knew when someone was sick before they did, knew when storms were coming, knew which plants would heal and which would harm. The girls seemed comforted by this, and the rest of the drive passed with them, peppering Samuel with questions about his grandmother, his childhood, his culture. He found himself sharing stories he hadn't thought about in years, memories he'd locked away with all the other pieces of his former life. When they got back to the cabin, they found Helen Morrison waiting for them, along with a man Samuel didn't recognize. Samuel, Helen said warmly, then her expression grew serious. This is Roger Daniels from the State Child Welfare Office. There's been a complaint. Samuel's stomach dropped. Dorothy Henderson. You know her. We ran into her in town. She was Rachel's landlord, made some threats about debt, and said some cruel things about the girls. Roger Daniels, a thin man with a bureaucratic air, consulted his clipboard. She's claiming the children are in danger, that you're unstable, living in isolation without proper facilities for children. That's ridiculous, Helen interjected. I've done the initial assessment. The home is clean, safe, and the children are clearly thriving despite their recent trauma. Nevertheless, Daniel said, we need to do a formal inspection, state protocol when a complaint is filed. Samuel gritted his teeth but nodded. Of course. Come in. What followed was 2 hours of invasive questions and meticulous note-taking. Daniels examined every corner of the cabin, questioned the sleeping arrangements, the food supply, even the outdoor facilities. The girls watched anxiously, clinging to each other. Finally, Daniels addressed them directly. Girls, do you feel safe here? Safer than anywhere, Emma said immediately. Sam saved us. He took care of me when I was sick. He teaches us things and tells us stories and never yells even when we spilled juice on his book. He's going to be our daddy, Lily added. Our mama said so in her letter. Daniels made more notes. And you don't find it scary living so far from town? Emma fixed him with her disconcerting stare. Your daughter is scared of the dark. You should get her the nightlight she wants, the one with the butterfly. She sees it every time you go to the store, but she's afraid to ask because you said she's too old for nightlights. Daniels dropped his pen. How did you? Emma knows things, Lily said matter-of-factly. It's not scary, it's just Emma. The man looked between the girls and Samuel, clearly unsettled. Helen stepped in smoothly. Mr. Daniels, I think you can see the children are well cared for and happy. The cabin may be remote, but it's perfectly suitable. Mr. Blackfeather has already begun the process of formal adoption, with the mother's explicit blessing. Daniels gathered his things hastily. Yes, well, I'll file my report. But I should note, Mr. Blackfeather, that you'll need to enroll the children in school once the adoption is formalized. The local elementary school in Cedar Ridge would be the closest option. After he left, Helen lingered. Don't worry about him. His report will be fine. He's just rattled. Emma has that effect on some people. Will it hurt our chances? The complaint? Emma's abilities? Helen smiled. Samuel, I've placed hundreds of children over my career. I've never seen a more natural fit than this. Yes, there will be challenges. Small towns have small minds sometimes. But these girls need you, and I think you need them too. That evening, As Samuel cooked dinner, he'd bought ingredients for spaghetti, remembering Emma and Lily mentioning it was their favorite. The girls were unusually quiet. "Are we too much trouble?" Lily finally asked. Samuel knelt down to their level. "No, never. You're the exact right amount of everything, but that man didn't like us. And the mean lady said we're cursed." "Listen to me," Samuel said, taking their hands. "Some people are afraid of things they don't understand. That's their problem, not yours. You are not cursed. You are not too much trouble. You are two of the bravest, kindest, most special girls I've ever met, and I'm honored that your mama trusted me with you." Emma threw her arms around his neck. "We love you, Sam." The words hit him like a physical blow. Love. When was the last time someone had said those words to him? When was the last time he'd said them? "I love you too," he said, the words rusty but true. "Both of you." That night, after the girls were asleep, Samuel sat by the fire with the photo album from Rachel's blue box. Looking through it, he saw the whole story. Rachel young and happy with David, their wedding photo showing a couple deeply in love. Then photos of Rachel pregnant, alone but determinedly cheerful. The twins as newborns, tiny and fragile in the NICU, their first birthday, second, third, fourth, each one showing Rachel getting thinner but never losing her smile when looking at her daughters. The last photo was dated just a week before she'd left them at the tree. Rachel was skeletal, clearly dying, but she had Emma and Lily on either side of her, all three of them laughing at something off camera. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "My angels, my reason, my everything." Samuel carefully placed the album on the shelf where the girls could reach it. They should always be able to see their mother, remember her love. A soft sound made him turn. Emma was standing at the foot of the loft ladder, tears streaming down her face. "Bad dream?" Samuel asked, opening his arms. She climbed into his lap, burying her face against his chest. "I dreamed about Mama. She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear her. She kept getting farther away." Samuel held her tight, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "Your Mama's not far away. She's in your heart, in your memories, in the way you laugh like her, in the way Lily sings her song. Love doesn't go away just because someone does." "But I'm starting to forget things," Emma whispered. "I can't remember if she liked coffee or tea. I can't remember the name of her perfume." "What if I forget everything?" "Then we'll remember together," Samuel said. "You'll remember some things, Lily will remember others, and I'll help you collect all the memories from people who knew her. We'll make a book, write down all the stories, so you'll never really forget." Emma looked up at him with those knowing eyes. "Sarah says you're a good daddy. She says she's glad we found you." Samuel's breath caught. He'd stopped questioning Emma's gift, stopped trying to rationalize it. "Tell Sarah, tell her thank you for everything." Emma nodded and snuggled closer. "She says to look in the drawer under the window. She says you kept something there you need to see." Samuel frowned. The drawer under the window had been stuck shut for years. He'd never bothered trying to force it open because he knew what was in there, or thought he did, just old papers from before. "Tomorrow," he said. "We'll look tomorrow." But Emma was already asleep again, peaceful now in his arms. Samuel carried her back up to the loft, tucking her in beside Lily. The two immediately curled toward each other, hands finding each other even in sleep. As he stood watching them, Samuel realized that something fundamental had shifted. The cabin didn't feel like a hiding place anymore. It felt like a home, incomplete still, needing work, but a home nonetheless. Tomorrow Helen would bring more paperwork. Tomorrow they'd have to face whatever gossip Dorothy Henderson had spread. Tomorrow there would be challenges and complications, and 1,000 things to figure out. But tonight, his daughters, and yes, he was already thinking of them as his daughters, were safe and warm, and loved. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The morning came with unexpected warmth, a brief reprieve from winter's grip that had icicles dripping from the eaves like tears. Samuel woke to find both girls already up, standing by the window drawer. Emma had mentioned the night before. "It wants to open," Emma said simply. "It's been waiting." Samuel approached the old drawer with apprehension. He'd tried to open it once, years ago, when he first built the cabin. It had jammed shut, and he'd left it assuming the wood had swollen. But now, when he pulled the handle, it slid open smoothly, as if it had never been stuck at all. Inside were papers he didn't remember putting there. On top was an envelope in Maria's handwriting. Impossible, since she'd never been to this cabin. He'd built it after her death. His hands shook as he opened it. "My beloved Sam, if you're reading this, then you've finally found your way back to love. I know it seems impossible that this letter exists, but your grandmother came to me in a dream the night before I died. She told me to write this, told me exactly where you would build your hiding place, told me that one day 2 little birds would nest in your broken heart and teach it to beat again. I know you blame yourself. Stop. The river took us, not you. You couldn't have prevented it, even if you'd been there. It was simply our time to fly, and your time to learn to walk through darkness. But darkness isn't meant to be permanent, my love. You were always meant to be a father, meant to have your heart filled with children's laughter. When the girls find you, and they will find you, drawn like magnets to your sadness and strength, please know that I sent them. Sarah sent them. We all did. Love them with the fierce protectiveness you would have given our children. Teach them the songs your grandmother taught you. Show them how to read the sky for storms and the earth for healing. Let them fill the silence we left behind. And Sam, when one of them tells you about us, and she will, the one with the gift, believe her. The walls between worlds are thinner than you think, and love is the bridge that connects them all. All my love, always. Maria. P.S. Check the birth certificates again. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Samuel sank to his knees, the letter clutched in trembling hands. The girls sat on either side of him, their small hands on his shoulders. "She's pretty," Lily said, pointing to a photo that had fallen from the envelope. "Maria, pregnant, glowing with happiness. She has a nice smile. That's Sam's first wife," Emma explained to her sister. "She and Sarah and the baby live in heaven now, but they help us sometimes." Samuel pulled out Rachel's box with the birth certificates. He'd looked at them before but hadn't really studied them. Now he saw what he'd missed. The hospital. Cedar Ridge General, the same hospital where Maria had been taken after the accident. The attending physician, Dr. James Winters. The same doctor who had tried to save Maria and Sarah, but it was the time of birth that made him gasp. Emma, 11:47 p.m. Lily, 11:52 p.m. "It's like a door," Emma said quietly. "One soul left. 2 souls entered. Mama said we came early, because the universe needed us right then, right that minute." The room felt charged with something beyond explanation. Samuel looked at these 2 girls who had arrived in his life at exactly the right moment, whose very existence was intertwined with his greatest loss, and understood that some things were too big for coincidence. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Helen stood outside with a younger woman and an older Apache man. Samuel recognized with shock his uncle Robert Blackfeather. Uncle. Samuel hadn't seen him in 5 years, not since the funeral. Robert's weathered face broke into a careful smile. "Samuel, when Helen called me about the adoption, about you taking in 2 girls, I had to come." "You called him?" Samuel asked Helen. "Family references are important for adoption proceedings," she explained. "And Mr. Blackfeather is a respected elder on the reservation. His support would carry significant weight." Robert entered the cabin, his eyes taking in everything. The sparse furnishings, the children's artwork now decorating the walls, the 2 girls watching him with curious eyes. "You must be Emma and Lily," he said, lowering himself to sit cross-legged on the floor. Both girls immediately moved closer, drawn by something in his presence. "You look like Sam, but older," Emma observed with characteristic bluntness. Robert laughed, a rich sound that filled the cabin. "I'm his uncle. That means if he becomes your father, I become your great-uncle." "Great like good or great like big?" Lily asked. "Both, I hope." The younger woman with Helen turned out to be a child psychologist. Sarah Mendez, another Sarah, which made Emma giggle and say, "They're everywhere," who needed to evaluate the girls as part of the adoption process. While Dr. Mendez talked with the twins, Robert pulled Samuel aside. "You've been hiding long enough, nephew." "I wasn't hiding. I was dying slowly," Robert finished. "I know the difference between mourning and giving up." "You gave up." Samuel couldn't deny it. "I had nothing left. And now," Samuel looked at the girls, who were showing Dr. Mendez their drawings, explaining elaborate stories about each one. "Now I have them. Your grandmother would be proud. She always said you would father children who weren't born to you but were born for you." "She said that?" Robert smiled. "She said many things. She also said the number 3 would be important. 3 souls lost, 3 souls found, 3 chances at happiness. You lost Maria, Sarah, and the baby. Now you've found Emma and Lily. Who's the third?" "I don't know what you mean." "You will." Dr. Mendez finished her evaluation, looking slightly dazed. "Those are remarkable children," she told Samuel. "Especially Emma. Has she always been so perceptive?" "According to their mother's letter, yes. It's fascinating. In my professional opinion, despite the trauma of losing their mother, they're remarkably well adjusted. The bond they have with each other is their strength, and the bond they're forming with you is happening at an extraordinary pace. Usually traumatized children take months or years to attach to new caregivers. These two act as if they've known you their whole lives." "Emma says we were always supposed to find him," Lily piped up. "She says some families are born and some are made, and some are just waiting to happen." Dr. Mendez made notes. "I'll be recommending immediate placement with continuation toward permanent adoption. These children clearly thrive in your care." After the official visitors left, Robert lingered. He taught the girls a traditional Apache blessing song, their young voices following his ancient one, with surprising accuracy. Then he told them stories about Samuel as a child, how he'd tried to ride a wild pony and ended up in a cactus patch, how he'd once gotten lost, following a butterfly, and was found hours later fast asleep under a juniper tree. "Tell us more," Emma demanded, delighted by these glimpses of Sam as a boy. "Another time," Robert promised. "I'll visit again soon." He looked at Samuel. "The reservation isn't that far. You could visit too. Bring the girls. They should know their culture." After he left, the cabin felt different, fuller somehow, as if Robert's presence had awakened something that had been sleeping in the walls. That evening, while preparing dinner, Samuel heard the girls whispering in the loft. "Should we tell him?" Lily asked. "Not yet," Emma replied. "She says it's not time." "Who says?" Samuel called up. The girls' heads appeared over the loft railing, looking guilty. "Nobody," they said in unison, which meant definitely somebody. Samuel let it go. He was learning that with Emma's gift came mysteries that revealed themselves in their own time. That night, as was becoming routine, the girls wanted a story. Samuel told them about White-Painted Woman again, but this time Emma interrupted. "She's here," she said suddenly. "White-Painted Woman. She says to tell you the third is coming." "The third? What?" "The third soul. The one Uncle Robert talked about. She's lost right now, but she'll find her way here. We're supposed to wait for her." Lily nodded solemnly. "Emma saw her in a dream. She has dark hair and sad eyes like you, and she carries a blue bird." "A blue bird, not a real one," Emma clarified. A symbol, a picture. It's hard to explain, but when you see the blue bird, you'll know." Samuel filed this away with all the other mysterious pronouncements Emma had made. Maybe it meant something, maybe it was just a child's imagination, mixing with grief and change. Either way, he'd learned not to dismiss anything Emma said. As the girls drifted off to sleep, Samuel sat by the fire reading Maria's letter again. The impossible letter that shouldn't exist but did. He thought about time, about how maybe it wasn't as linear as people believe. Maybe love could move backward and forward, leaving messages across years like echoes in a canyon. His phone rang. The lines were finally fully restored. It was Helen. "Samuel, I have wonderful news. The expedited adoption hearing has been approved. Given Rachel's explicit wishes, the positive evaluations, and your uncle's supporting statement, the judge is willing to hear the case next week." That soon. It's unusual, but the circumstances are unusual. Oh, and Samuel, Dorothy Henderson tried to file an injunction, but it was thrown out. Apparently she has her own legal troubles now, something about illegally entering Rachel's apartment after her death and taking items. The police are investigating. After hanging up, Samuel looked at the sleeping girls. Next week they could legally become his daughters. The thought was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. A soft knock at the door surprised him. It was late for visitors. When he opened it, a young woman stood there, early 20s maybe, with long dark hair and eyes that held a familiar sadness. She was wearing a nurse's uniform from Cedar Ridge Hospital. "Mr. Blackfeather, I'm sorry to come so late. My name is Carmen Winters." Dr. James Winters was my father. Samuel's breath caught. Dr. Winters, the man who'd tried to save Maria and Sarah. "I know this is strange," Carmen continued, "but I've been having dreams about two little girls who need help. And in the dreams, a woman who looks like the photo my father kept, Maria Blackfeather. She tells me to come here, to bring this." She held out a small carved wooden bird, painted blue. "My father made it," she explained. "He carved birds as a way to deal with the patients he couldn't save. This one, he made it the night your wife died. He said it was for the babies who were born that same night, that somehow their arrival helped balance the loss. He never knew what he meant by that, but he kept this bird on his desk until he died last year." From the loft, Emma's voice drifted down, heavy with sleep. "Tell her she can come in. She's the third one, the one who helps us remember how to fly." Carmen looked up, startled. "How did she?" "Emma knows things," Samuel said simply, stepping aside. "Come in. I think we have a lot to talk about." As Carmen entered the cabin, the blue bird in her hand, Samuel felt the last piece of something clicking into place. He didn't fully understand it yet, might never fully understand it, but he recognized the hand of fate when he saw it. 3 souls lost, 3 souls found, and now, perhaps, 3 chances at happiness. Just as his grandmother had predicted, the universe, it seemed, did indeed have a sense of humor, and perhaps a heart as well. The courthouse in Cedar Ridge had seen better days. Limestone facade was weathered and cracked, much like the small town it served. Samuel stood outside with Emma and Lily, all 3 of them dressed in their best clothes, which for Samuel meant his only suit, dusty from years of neglect, and for the girls, the new dresses Helen had helped them pick out. Emma's was purple, of course, and Lily's was sky blue. "Are you nervous?" Lily asked, slipping her small hand into his. "A little," Samuel admitted. "Don't be," Emma said with that uncanny certainty she possessed. "It's already decided. The judge just doesn't know it yet." They'd spent the past week preparing, with Helen coaching them through what to expect. Carmen Winters had visited twice more, drawn by something she couldn't quite explain. She'd brought medical supplies for the cabin and toys for the girls, but more importantly, she'd brought stories about her father, about the night the twins were born, about the strange sense of destiny he'd felt in those moments between death and birth. "He used to say that room was sacred that night," she'd told Samuel. "Room 47, where your wife passed, and room 48 next door, where the twins were born. He said he felt something shift in the universe, like a door closing and windows opening." Now, walking into the courthouse, Samuel saw that they weren't alone. Robert had come, bringing several elders from the reservation. Mrs. Chen from the general store was there, and Mr. Hatfield from the clothing shop. Even some people Samuel didn't recognize. Apparently word had spread about the hermit and the orphan twins, and not all the gossip had been negative. Dorothy Henderson was there too, sitting in the back with a sour expression and a bandaged hand. "Mr. Whiskers bit her again," Emma whispered. "3 times this week. He really doesn't like mean people." The judge, the Honorable Patricia Santos, was a small woman with silver hair and kind eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed the papers before her, then looked at Samuel. "Mr. Blackfeather, this is an unusual case. Expedited adoption, especially to a single man with no prior relationship to the children, is rare. However, Given Miss Martinez's explicit wishes and the circumstances, I'm willing to hear arguments. Let's start with you telling me, in your own words, why you should be granted custody of Emma and Lily Martinez." Samuel stood, his mouth dry. He'd prepared a speech, but looking at the girls' trusting faces, he forgot every word. "Your Honor," he began, "5 years ago, I lost everything, my wife, my daughter, my unborn child. I thought my life was over. I moved to the mountains to basically wait to die, if I'm being honest." The courtroom was silent. On Christmas Eve, I found these girls in a snowstorm. Or maybe they found me. Their mother, Rachel Martinez, left them where she knew they'd be discovered. What I didn't know then was that she knew who I was. That her husband had died in the same accident that killed my wife. That these girls were born the very moment my family died. A murmur ran through the courtroom. The judge raised her hand for silence. "I don't understand it," Samuel continued. "I may never understand it. But these girls have brought me back to life. They've given me purpose, hope, a reason to wake up in the morning. I'm not perfect. I'm not even close, but I will love them, protect them." So the summer became a tapestry of learning. Apache traditions from Robert and Ana, Mexican stories and cooking from Isabel's memories, the mysterious healing gifts the twins were developing, and the slow, steady building of a family that no one could have predicted. Carmen was there most days, her connection to the family deepening beyond her role as their doctor. Samuel found himself looking forward to her visits, to the way she laughed at the girls' antics, to the quiet conversations they had after the children were asleep. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the girls chase fireflies, a new wonder for Isabel, who'd never seen them, Carmen said, "My father would have loved this." Seeing how everything connected, how the tragedy led to this, "Do you think he knew?" Samuel asked. "Really knew how it would all unfold?" "I think he hoped," Carmen said. "He wrote in his journal that sometimes the universe breaks things so they can be reformed into something stronger, something more beautiful. Like the Japanese art of kintsugi," Samuel said, "fixing broken pottery with gold, making the repair part of the beauty." "Exactly." Carmen paused, then added, "We're all broken here, aren't we? You, me, the girls. All of us carrying cracks and missing pieces. But we fit together," Samuel said, watching Emma show Isabel how to cup a firefly gently, while Lily sang softly to calm the frightened insect. "Somehow all our broken edges align." That night, after Carmen had gone home and the girls were asleep, Samuel found himself at his desk, writing a letter he would never send. "Dear Maria and Sarah, our family has grown in ways I never imagined. 3 girls now fill this cabin with laughter, tears, and everyday miracles. Emma sees the future and the past with equal clarity. Lily heals with her hands and her voice. Isabel preserves memory like a sacred trust. Carmen helps me navigate this strange new world. She understands loss, but hasn't let it make her bitter. The girls love her, and I'm learning to open my heart again. I used to think I was honoring you by staying broken, by refusing to heal. Now I understand that the greatest honor I can give you is to love again, to father these children who needed me as desperately as I needed them. Thank you for sending them to me, if that's what you did. Thank you for the signs, the impossible letters, the dreams Emma shares. Thank you for teaching me that death isn't the end of love, just a transformation of it. Watch over us as I know you do. We're building something beautiful from all our broken pieces. Forever yours, Sam." As he set down his pen, Emma appeared at his elbow. He'd long since stopped being surprised by her sudden appearances. "They read it," she said simply. "They always read what you write to them." She hugged him and padded back to bed, leaving Samuel with tears on his face and hope in his heart. Outside, a shooting star crossed the sky, or maybe it was just a firefly closer than the stars, but no less magical for it. Either way, Samuel took it as a sign that they were on the right path. This unlikely family held together by lost love and the inexplicable threads that bind souls across time and space. Fall came early that year, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. The cabin had evolved into a proper home, with additions that seemed to grow organically as the family expanded. Isabel had been with them for 4 months, and the adoption proceedings were moving forward smoothly. It was a Saturday morning when Emma woke with a startled gasp, her eyes wide with an urgency Samuel had never seen before. "We have to go to the tree," she said. "The one where you found us, right now." Samuel didn't question it anymore. When Emma had that look, that certainty, he listened. They bundled up, all 4 of them, as Carmen had stayed over after dinner the night before, and hiked to the fallen oak. There, sitting in exactly the spot where Samuel had found the twins, was a small wooden box. "How is that possible?" Carmen whispered. "We were just here last week." Emma picked up the box reverently. Inside was a letter and a small worn photograph. Samuel recognized the handwriting immediately. It was his grandmother's, though she'd been dead for over a decade. His hands trembled as he read, "My grandson, if you are reading this, then the circle is nearly complete. I saw this moment in a dream 60 years ago, before you were even born. I saw you broken and rebuilt, saw the children who would save you as you saved them. The photograph is of me, with another medicine woman, taken in 1955. Look closely at the woman beside me." Samuel studied the old black and white photo. His grandmother stood next to a younger woman, who looked remarkably like that's my great-grandmother. Carmen said, shocked. "I have this same photo in my father's things. How is this possible?" Emma took the photo, studying it intently. They were friends. They made a promise to each other that their families would be bound together, that they would heal each other's wounds across time. "But that's," Carmen started. "Impossible," Samuel asked. "So is a letter from my wife in a drawer of a cabin built after her death. So is Emma knowing about your father's blue bird. So are the twins being born the moment my family died. We left impossible behind a long time ago." The letter continued. She took his hand, and suddenly Samuel could see it, threads of light connecting everyone in the institute, extending out to the town, the world, creating a web of interconnected love and loss and healing. "Every person we've lost," Emma continued, "their love didn't die, it just changed form. It became the force that brought us together. Rachel's love brought Lily and me to you. Maria's love guided Carmen to us. Every loss created space for new love to grow." "The cracks where the light gets in," Samuel murmured, remembering the Leonard Cohen quote. Carmen loved. "Exactly. We're all broken, Sam. Every single person in that building. But our breaks aligned perfectly, like a puzzle meant to be solved together." A warm wind swept through the garden, carrying the scent of sage and pine. For just a moment Samuel could have sworn he saw them. All of them. Maria holding Sarah and their baby. Rachel standing proud and healthy. Isabel's grandmother, with her arms full of monarch butterflies. Miguel's little brother. Carmen's father. Even Anna's grandmother and his own. Young again, their friendship restored. They were smiling, all of them. And then they were gone. But the feeling remained. Approval, completion, perfect love. "There's one more thing," Emma said, and now she was crying, something she rarely did. "I won't have the gift forever. It's already starting to fade. By the time I'm 20, it'll be gone." "Emma, no, it's okay. It's supposed to happen. The gift is meant for children, for those still close to the veil between worlds. As we grow up, we trade the gift for something else, wisdom, maybe, or the ability to guide others. I'll be a teacher, like you, Lily too. Our gifts will transform, not disappear." She looked back at the institute, glowing with warm light against the darkness. "But there will always be gifted children who need us. Always be those who see too much, feel too much, know too much for the regular world to handle. And we'll be here for them." Samuel pulled her close, this remarkable child who had saved him. I'm proud of you. So proud. I know, Emma said. I can feel it, just like I can feel Maria's pride, and Sarah's, and Mama's. We did what we were supposed to do, Sam. We took all the broken pieces and made something beautiful. They stood there for a long moment, grandfather and daughter by choice if not blood, watching the stars emerge. Then Carmen called them in for dinner, and they walked back together, toward the warmth and chaos of their impossible family. At dinner, Miguel announced he'd been accepted to MIT to study predictive modeling. Isabel shyly shared that the Museum of Modern Art wanted to feature her work. Lily had successfully taught 3 new children to sense illness. The twins had managed to go a whole day without accidentally reading someone's mind. A record for them. Normal family chaos, if any family with 36 gifted children could be called normal. As the evening wound down and children began heading to their dormitories, Samuel found himself back in his office, looking at the photo wall pictures, chronicling their journey from that first Christmas Eve to now. The broken hermit and 2 frozen girls had become something neither he nor Rachel, nor even Emma could have fully envisioned. Carmen found him there, as she always did when he got contemplative. "Any regrets?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "None," Samuel said, and meant it. Every loss, every break, every moment of pain, it all led here. I wouldn't change a thing, even the pain, especially the pain. Without it, we never would have recognized each other. Broken souls calling out to broken souls, finding wholeness together. A soft knock interrupted them. Ana Delgado stood in the doorway with a small boy, perhaps 6 years old, clutching a battered teddy bear. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Ana said, "but this is Tommy. He was just brought to us. His parents died in a car accident yesterday. He hasn't spoken since, but he has the gift," Emma said, appearing with her usual timing. She approached the boy slowly, gently. "You can hear them, can't you? The ones who've crossed over." The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face. "It's scary at first," Emma said, taking his hand, "but we can teach you, we can help you understand. You're not alone anymore." And watching Emma comfort this newly orphaned child, seeing Lily appear to offer her healing touch, Isabel ready with art supplies to help him process his grief, Miguel already calculating the best room assignment for a boy with auditory sensitivities, Samuel understood that this was the true miracle, not the gifts themselves, not the impossible coincidences that had brought them together, but this, that broken people could come together and create a safe space for other broken people, that loss could transform into purpose, that the love we think we've lost simply changes form and returns to us in ways we never expected. "Welcome home, Tommy," Samuel said, kneeling beside the boy. "We've been waiting for you." The boy looked at him with eyes that held too much pain for someone so young. Eyes Samuel recognized from his mirror 5 years ago, and whispered, "The angel said you'd understand." "We do," Samuel said. "We all do." As they settled Tommy into what would become his new life, Samuel thought about the letter he'd written years ago to Maria and Sarah, about broken hearts healing stronger. He thought about Emma's explanation of where love goes when someone dies. He thought about his grandmother's prophecy of 3 souls lost and found. But mostly he thought about tomorrow, about the new children who would find their way to their doors, about the gifts that would be discovered and nurtured, about the healing that would ripple out from this place like drops in a still pond. The Blackfeather Institute's official motto, carved into a wooden sign at the entrance, read, "Where broken wings learn to fly." But Samuel knew the real motto, the one that lived in the hearts of everyone there: love doesn't die. It just transforms. And in that transformation, in the alchemy that turned grief into purpose and loss into love, they had found the answer to the question that had haunted Samuel that first Christmas Eve. Why? Why had Maria died? Why had Rachel left her girls in the snow? Why did children suffer and parents grieve and the world seem so randomly cruel? Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes the breaking was necessary for the rebuilding. The shattering was required for the mosaic. The loss created space for a love so much larger than anything that had come before. As the night settled over the Institute, as 37 gifted souls found peace in sleep, as the stars wheeled overhead in their eternal dance, Samuel Blackfeather stood with his family. Carmen, Emma, Isabel, Miguel, the twins and all the others who'd found their way home and knew with absolute certainty they had been worth it, all of it. The pain, the loss, the impossible journey from that frozen Christmas Eve to this warm November night. Every moment had been leading here to this family, this purpose, this love that transcended death itself. And somewhere, in the space between heartbeats, between breaths, between words, all the ones they'd lost were smiling. The lonely Apache had found his angels. The angels had found their home, and the truth, the beautiful, shattering, healing truth, was that love never really dies. It just waits, patient as winter snow, until broken hearts are ready to be whole again. And then it returns, multiplied beyond measure, in the laughter of children who were lost and are now found, in the purpose that rises from pain, in the family that chooses itself over and over again, every single day, forever.